Male Elixir has been a smashing success for JPG since its release a few years ago. Now in 2025, they brought to market a flanker cologne of that flanker, Male Elixir Absolu. I bought a bottle of Absolu and have been testing it out and comparing it to my bottle of Elixir. Which Gaultier fragrance smells better? Which of these scents lasts longer? Between them, which one is the better to buy? Elixir begins with its mint note out in front, giving it a cool and fresh spiciness. This is joined by the usual Le Male lavender note. That's not much of a standout in the opening act of this one. The other major factor going on early is the tonka bean, and that is going to pair with the vanilla note and get stronger as the fragrance moves along. Now, the tonka bean early is paired with the honey, and it's very sweet and syrupy in that combination together. And that also includes the fuzziness of the benzoin note. Now, with Elixir Absolu, on the other hand, gets rid of the mint note, comes with the lavender, plum, and this warm spice. I'm not sure exactly what it is. To me, it smells kind of like cumin. To me, the plum actually isn't too heavy in the start. It's also less of a tart, and it's a sweeter type of plum than I thought it would be. Lavender is a stronger focus with Absolu. There might also be a bit of iris in here, or it's just how the lavender and tonka bean and everything is coming together. Now, which is better? The opening act of Absolu isn't particularly interesting to me. I like it somewhat, but I still think that Elixir does a better job. It's much bolder with its notes, and it just works better for me in the opening act. So in terms of how each of these projects, they are both absolute beasts as far as designer fragrances go, maybe a notch below Ultra Male, each of them, but you won't be disappointed, and I don't detect a real difference between them, except in the fact that the original Elixir is a heavier and more cloying scent with that honey tobacco sweetness it has. But as far as how each projects, there's no real difference at all from what I can tell. Le Male Elixir was always a very good performer with how long it lasts. It will keep going for 9 to 10.5 hours on my skin. How does Absolu stack up in comparison? While it doesn't surpass the original, it once again matches it at 9 to 10.5 hours. The scent itself has changed, but they both stick around for the long haul, and again, there's no real difference here. In terms of versatility, here I think the newer release has a slight edge. It's not as thick and heavy as Elixir can be, at least at times. Way less of an ability to be completely cloying. Again, it still projects well, but I think Absolu can venture a bit further into springtime than its predecessor. Still, both of these are good for autumn and winter. It's just that Absolu holds up better when it's slightly warm out. Still, both of these are casual fragrances rather than being something formal or something for office wear or anything like that. I do think Absolu has a slight advantage in this category though. Overall, which one of these Elixir fragrances do I prefer? I don't think that either one of these is a perfect scent, but the new Elixir Absolu has won me over thus far. The dry down is where I really start to enjoy Absolu. It's a mix of light plum, tonka bean, vanilla, lavender, and maybe some iris, if that's even in here, or something that smells like it. In the opening act, I think the original Elixir is a bit better. Absolu takes a while to kick in, and it's kind of messy up front. They're both kind of messy up front, but I think it's more so in Absolu. I don't particularly like the warm spice it has in contrast to the mint note that I get with Elixir. But in the dry down, I think in the middle and the dry down, it gets a lot better. With Absolu, there's just something in the beginning that isn't really clicking with me. Now, you can also tell that it's very much like the original, just that honey, benzoin, tobacco combination is toned way down in this mix. And the mint note is really non-existent. The plum note here is also well blended in the mix. I was afraid that it would be a very potent, tart sort of plum that like you'd get in 1 Million Lucky by Paco Rabanne, but it's not that. It's still sweeter, floral, and you get the undertone of the original Elixir just toned down from the honey, tobacco, and mint note especially. The warmth, it's more of a fresher, cooler, powdery, sweet sort of fragrance. Elixir Absolu isn't a complete overhaul of Le Male Elixir, but it creates enough separation between these two to not only be different, but I think also better. With Elixir, I enjoyed it when it came out, and I still do like it, but I have lost some interest wearing it over time. There are Times I wear it when the sweetness is too much, it's too thick with that honey note. But I think Gaultier came through with a nice, let's call it a remix of the formulation. The opening act of Absolu isn't my favorite, still kind of a mess, but if I had to buy one of them, I'd get the newer release. If you already own the first one, I would try Elixir Absolu out when you can, but I don't think it's a situation where you need or want both of them.